Welcome, I'm Dayna Roselli, host of this episode of Common Threads, along with Caren Lettiere, the founder and president of Democracy Clothing. And today we are hot and unbothered and talking about menopause. We are excited to have an important conversation. We have some special guests with us, Andrea and Marcella. Let's talk a little bit about, why don't you introduce yourself so we can let everyone know how you're here and what we're going to talk about today.
Of course. I'm Andrea Donsky. I'm a published menopause researcher, and I'm a menopause educator, and I'm a nutritionist, and I'm in menopause myself. So I'm so honored to be here and to be part of this conversation because it's such an important one. I really didn't know much when I went into perimenopause and menopause, and I've learned so much. So continuing the conversation is so important.
Yeah. And Marcella?
I'm Marcella Hill, and I share my personal story of going through perimenopause on social media. I also am the founder and CEO of Wake Her Up, which is the largest directory in the world to find a hormone therapist. And I'm also an author.
I just want to talk about, with you ladies, why are we not talking more about perimenopause and menopause? I think it's improved slightly, but it seems like it used to be so taboo.
I'll give you the non-professional answer. I think that's because our bodies get hijacked and we don't recognize all the different symptoms and the correlation to what cause, like perimenopause. And what we're experiencing, let's face it, it's not very pleasant. So it's a kind of thing you want to escape from and not share in community. But as we become more and more connected, and as we find outlets and people and advocates to speak with, I think women are identifying. And I think that access to social media is enabling us to connect.
And I think people were made aware of both of you, right? On the internet through social media. You were saying you've had, like videos that have gone viral, which brought awareness.
Yeah, I mean, up to this point, I think most women think that you hit 50, you have some hot flashes, your period ends. We don't even know to be having the conversation because we don't know that our scalp getting itchy and dry has anything to do with hormones. Mm-hmm. We're 35, dropping in libido, hating everyone, and we have no idea that the conversation is perimenopause. Yeah. And then we go to our doctors, tell them our symptoms, and they just give us an antidepressant. So the conversation isn't even something we know we should be having because all of the symptoms are not being connected to perimenopause.
Well, and I'm sure there are a lot of symptoms that people don't even realize, just like you said.
Many.
I mean, the list is long.
The list is really long, and our research at Morphus, so I run a company called Morphus, we are morphus.com, and we have published research on the number of signs and symptoms that there are, and there are 103 plus symptoms.
Whoa.
103.
I have itchy ears. Is that a symptom?
That is absolutely a symptom. Yes, it is. Omega-3s, they really help.
Okay.
That is the trick.
Got it.
So the thing about, also going back to your question before, is that we didn't really talk, like my mom never talked to me about it, which I know is very common, and my grandmother never talked to my mother about it, and like Marcella said, our doctors aren't talking about it, and we're not learning about it in school. Mm-hmm. So all of this has to change, and it is changing, which is nice to see that more of us are talking about perimenopause and menopause. I met so many people today that said that their friends are talking about perimenopause and menopause. So it's nice to see how things are changing. The stigma is changing. All of that is, by talking about it more, makes it less of a secret when we go into it, and it becomes less scary for many of us too.
We're just getting to the point where girls aren't hiding their tampons to hand to another person, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, this whole thing is a whole nother conversation. I have an 11-year-old that's walking into puberty, and we're still trying to figure out how to get comfortable with that conversation. I grew up in a family with 3 girls, and nobody talked about periods. Mm-hmm. So no one, of course, not talking about menopause.
All right. But we're hearing more and more about it. And I feel like, we have to address things that are, all around menopause. And that's how we feel. And I know that's part of the reason that we're having this conversation today, Caren.
And I think coming from the perspective of clothing and what we wear and how that's an external indication of what we're feeling and experiencing, women go through 3 physiological life changes. Men don't. If you're living in a home and the home is 30 years old, you wouldn't get mad at the house and say it needs to be repainted. But we're so harsh about this body that carries us through life and does such meaningful work for us.
And to your point too, I think it's important once we know what's happening with our body, because so many of us don't realize what's happening, and that's where that conversation comes in, and we understand that our body's changing. Once we know, then we can do something about it to maybe change the way we're dressing, to change whatever it is about us that we, that kind of helps to adapt.
Well, and people watching might say, well, how do I know? What do I do?
Well, I think knowing the symptoms is a big one.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 years ago when I put my story on TikTok, I just listed all of my symptoms, and the next day, 9 million views. And
Wow.
the comments were the kicker, because it was every single comment was like, wait, what? I'm experiencing all of these things. You're describing me. This is me. This is me. Why isn't anyone helping? Where are we going? And it was hundreds of thousands of women across the whole world saying, wait, what? I am experiencing everything and I didn't know. So women need to know what the symptoms are.
And I feel like it's overnight. Am I wrong with that? It's like literally boom. And I think that shocks people.
It starts with you're a little bit tired.
Yeah.
You know, you can't get through your day as much, or your period is changing, right? So there's slight, like little things that start to happen. You're like, wait a second, yesterday I didn't have this, or how come I feel this today? And then as you approach menopause, it gets, for many women, it gets more intense. Knowing what they are is so important, because that way we understand what's happening to our body.
Well, and also recognizing it's a phase, right? We don't go and get some blood test to find out if our kids are in puberty. They just are. And they are before their period starts. So I have an 11-year-old, right? Like, she is definitely in puberty. So I think recognizing if you're between 35 and 50, there you are. Okay. You're in it, you know? And I always say, if you want to sell everything and move to a tiny house in Costa Rica, that's perimenopause, right? We're looking for this diagnosis, and it's just not, it doesn't need to be a diagnosis. If you are itchy, if you hate everyone, if your husband is breathing wrong, you know, I mean, those are all symptoms.
You know, if your partner, you know, doesn't understand what you're experiencing physically, because men have different experiences, you know, like the hot flashes, needing the air conditioner on. Every night I come upstairs, my husband's already in bed, and he'll say, we don't need the air. It's cool in here. I'm like, not in my body. Till you jump in this body, you're not going to tell me what temperature it is. And I think that's part of what also impacts how we feel about our partners.
So we talk about not feeling alone, right? And that's why you're seeing in the comments in a lot of these videos, this is me. People are feeling seen, and they feel like, okay, I'm not crazy. But what do we do as far as how we handle this every day? We go to work, we have relationships. How are we handling this? I mean, it's tough because you've got to go into an office, some people, and they have to work with others. You need to show up to work. You need to feel good, look good, all these things. I think it's an important conversation to have, because I think people don't know, what do I do with this now? How do I function every day?
Well, I think it's ironic that we're sitting here, you know, with the creator of Democracy, because I got to a point where my body had shifted so much. Like, weight was in weird places. I didn't even know how to be in my body. None of the clothes that typically fit me. I just felt weird, almost like a teenager, right? Their arms are too long and they don't know how to use their body. I just felt so weird. And I remember going to a Dillard's, and I was like, I am not leaving until I have found a pair of pants that fits this new body. And I spent hours and hours, and I remember the girl bringing me pants after pants after pants. She brought me a pair of these jeans, and I put them on, and I was like, whatever these are, like, these are built for me. Like, somebody,
every color.
Somebody made these just for me. And I remember walking out of there being like, finally, I can show up. I'm back.
That is literally why we do what we do.
Yeah.
It started with pregnancy and postpartum women, me being one of them. We really just wanted to take care of women that feel unseen and make them feel good and comfortable in their skin. Our mission is to make women feel relevant and current and modern and beautiful in their own skin, in their ever-changing body. There is nothing else in life that we would ever like if it stayed exactly the same. Why can't we extend that same sense of grace and accommodation to ourselves and just be realistic? I ended up having to do intermittent fasting, giving up giving up gluten-free, you know, carbs, sugar, all the things, the amount of exercise that I had to try to integrate to try to take weight off or to try to reshape my body. And it's a very demoralizing experience to be so disciplined and to not be able to make an impact on it.
I mean, that's the question you see over what can I do? A lot of people say, I've done everything, none of it works. Is this just how it is? I mean, are there tweaks? So let's talk about that. How do we show up? What can we do to make these changes?
Yeah, I mean, for me, my lane is nutrition, lifestyle, and supplements. So that's what I focus on as a nutritionist for more than 20 years. So there is a lot we can do with what we're eating, with what we're drinking, with how we're managing our stress, with how we're going to the gym, what we're doing, shifting the way we did things. We often say what we did before we got into perimenopause and menopause shifts. It changes as we go into perimenopause and menopause. And my story is very similar to Marcella's in terms of, I had gained quite a bit of weight when I was in perimenopause. I didn't understand why. My moods were all over the place. I was exhausted. I had insane hot flashes and night sweats. And when I would ask other people, they would say, I don't know what you're talking about. So I felt really alone. And that's why having a community is so important, to be able to help each other. But once I learned, and as a nutritionist, I was very hard on myself once I started going through this phase of life, because I thought, this is what I do for a living. This is why I help people understand what they're putting in and on their body. And I couldn't help myself. So I almost felt like I was failing myself and others until I realized that it's the way I was doing things needed to change. So everything that I had done up to that point, it was kind of like the same old, didn't work anymore as I went into perimenopause and menopause.
Yeah.
And that's the important thing, is learning how to adapt certain things.
And accept, right?
And
we have to accept it.
Accept and adapt. And so when we look at our food, looking at we need a lot more protein now. So protein, fiber, making sure that we're hydrated, lots of vegetables, green vegetables, low glycemic fruits, which helps you with the fiber, complex carbohydrates, legumes, nuts and seeds. So these are things, looking at a whole foods diet is really important. And then how do we manage stress? Cortisol plays a big role when it comes to weight gain, especially around the belly. And as we go into perimenopause and menopause, like Marcella was saying, things were shifting and changing. Fat gets stored in different areas, and it tends to get more around the belly, in the midsection, as we go into this phase of life. So managing stress plays a massive role in terms of managing our cortisol levels, making sure we get enough sleep. It's really understanding how do we adapt what we've been doing to fit this stage of life.
I know hormone replacement therapy is something that comes up.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was just losing it. I felt crazy. I just about left my marriage because I had no libido, and I was equating that to, I don't like you anymore. We were going to therapy and nothing seemed to work to like turn my body back on. And one of my friends, I got lucky enough that she said, it sounds like it's your hormones, but I had already gone to my OBGYN, had my hormones checked. She'd come back, said everything looked normal. So why would I go anywhere else? And my friend said, no, you need to go to a hormone therapist. And I was like, give me the number. Where are we going? And the next week I was in a hormone therapist office. They gave me testosterone and progesterone. And not even 7 days later, it's like all the lights flipped back on. And my body didn't hurt anymore. I was sleeping. Things didn't itch anymore. I could think straight. My little girl could snuggle up to me without my body just feeling like, everyone don't touch me. About 3-4 months into it, all of a sudden my libido zings back on. I'm like, the laundry's not done. I don't care. Take my pants off. Let's go. Right? Like, you've got the NIH study that was back in the 90s that took all of the hormones off the table. Do you know, back in the 90s, like 70% of women were on hormones, and now it's something like 3%. And now we're learning that hormones can increase your bone density. They can help protect your heart, protect your brain, decrease your chances for dementia. I mean, it is massively beneficial. And for me, I mean, it just turned all the lights back on. It gave me my life back.
So I was one of those women that was on hormones for years, and I had to go off the hormones because I had a hormone positive form of breast cancer. When women go off the hormones is when they gain weight. That's when that belly shows up. But what can women do who can't take those traditional hormones to help regulate? Are there other more natural supplements or things that can help stimulate what the traditional hormones can do for women?
So for me, I would always go back to nutrition, lifestyle, and supplements.
I have a huge community that's global. It's like 60,000 women. And even my very dear friend had breast cancer. And she went back to her doctor with a lot of new studies. And for her and her doctor, they figured out how to be comfortable with testosterone. I have seen lots of new studies, lots of different doctors testing things, working with different people. If it's curious to you and you've only talked to one doctor or maybe even 3 doctors, I would just say expand your circle. There's just so much new research happening right now. People are trying new things.
And find a doctor who specializes in perimenopause and menopause, and there's so many today.
Well, I think we need to invest in ourselves. That's what I'm
100%.
basically, you know, we need to do the research. It's not just blow it off. This isn't just, it is a phase of our life, but we need to put in some work. And maybe it is, you know, how can I change my lifestyle? What can I eat that will help? Maybe I want an option of going on HRT.
And going off of what you said, like investing in yourself. Women will come to me and say, oh, it's $100 for blood work. And I'm like, you take out a car loan so you can drive a car around so that you can have a life. You took out a mortgage on a house so that you can live well. But we have not been taught that this is our house. This is literally our vehicle. Why aren't we taking out full-on mortgages to make sure we live in a place that feels good, that's comfortable, that can get us to work? And women have to shift. Like, this is where you live. And I have shifted my entire perspective on realizing this deserves investment. It deserves time. And I just think a lot of women have given and given and given. We are people pleasers, and the society we live in does not tell us that it's okay to invest in ourselves. They tell us that it's selfish.
Self-love is not selfish.
Yeah.
And it is a change of mindset to really understand that.
And like, some people might be like, self-love, I'm not getting into all that. But it really is important.
It's crucial.
I think also women are caretakers naturally, the vast majority of us. And my generation is one of the first generations of co-equal. We both contributed to our household income. We had to divide the responsibilities. Women still bear the brunt of, that's your luxury. Okay, you choose to work, even though work is choosing for you to contribute to your family's lifestyle. You are responsible for everybody else first. And by the time you get to yourself, you're exhausted, you're tired.
Completely burnt out.
And I think that is part of what contributes to the emotional experience that's tied to the impact of menopause on our bodies, is that we just are, we're tired, we're exhausted, we're giving to everybody else. And we often don't realize until we're deep into it that we're being impacted by it. We need to make time for ourselves to exist and to be a person first.
And I think making time at work, like, it's interesting because I think once it's out there more, which, you know, we're getting there, you can have that conversation with a woman in the break room or the person who sits next to you at your desk, and it's not so weird. And you can actually look forward to going to work. Can't wait to ask so-and-so if she experienced this. You know, things are out there, and it changes the dynamic of your day, being able to be freely talking about it.
I think in my community, everyone wants so badly, like, give me the testosterone. How much testosterone? Just put it in my body so that I can do the thing. And I'm like, that's not going to make you fall in love with yourself. You know, I always tell women, how do you fall in love with someone? You've seen them at the bar, you get to know them, you take them out, you spend time with them, you're curious about how they interact with the world. When's the last time you've done that with yourself? Sat down and actually just listened to yourself. And for me, sitting in meditation, this was about 5 years ago, I was introduced to meditation, and I just sat and just tried to listen to myself, you know, and I would say that alone helped me understand who I was. And once you understand who you are, then making the investment in yourself actually matters. You want to, because you are falling in love with yourself. It would be the same as falling in love with someone else. You want to spend the time, you want to spend the money. You start doing that for yourself. And just not a lot of women have spent the time to fall in love with themselves.
And I think it's important to know too that when you're going through perimenopause and you're in the weeds and you can't see the light at the end, but once you get out of there, once you get out of the weeds and you can see that light, we really have to be gentle on ourselves. We cannot be like, we're so hard on ourselves as women. My biggest mantra is be gentle with yourself. Learn how to forgive yourself. Understand that it will get better. For many of us, it does get better. And we have so many options that we talked about today to how to get there. But one thing I do want to note as well is that a lot of women will say to me, Andrea, when do we get out of menopause? It's one of the most common questions that that I receive. And it's like, you were never getting out of menopause, because once you go into menopause, you're in menopause for the rest of your life. And it's a really important thing to understand, because the way we nurture ourselves now is setting ourselves up for the rest of our life. So however that is to you, however you're nourishing yourself for you now, whether it's through nutrition, through lifestyle changes, through meditation, through self-love, through hormones, whatever that is, or all of it, it is now setting up the stage for us to live the rest of our lives in a way that we could feel better, that we could thrive, that we could love ourselves.
And I think it's okay to try different things,
Absolutely.
right? We're going to have to try to see what works for us. What works for me may not work for Caren, and you need to keep trying
and
to
experiment, and don't stop trying. And I think that's the important thing. Don't just try one thing, oh, it doesn't work. Try different things and keep at it.
Well, and I wanted to quickly touch, when we talk about lifestyle, lifting weights a little bit more, right? We've got to change our mindset of how we're getting physical activity in. I know people talk about the weighted vest. They talk about when you're walking or even cleaning around the house, wearing some wrist weights or ankle weights. I mean, it's important, right?
Yeah, I mean, women have been told forever to just get smaller. The smaller is better. And now we're completely shifting that conversation. Now stronger. Stronger is what will keep us. And I'm like, I want to keep a strong brain. I want to be able to get myself in the shower for the rest of my life. I want to get myself off the toilet for the rest of my life. And so now we have to start shifting our mindset of like, can you do a squat with weight? Can your bones handle it? And now instead of trying to get smaller, we need to get stronger.
As Gen Xers, I'm a Gen Xer. Growing up, it was all about like hitting the cardio, making sure I'm doing like an hour and a half of cardio, right? And I didn't want to touch a weight because I'm going to look like the Hulk. Like, so things that were kind of ingrained in our minds growing up, and now it's like the opposite. And there's so much great research on muscle strength, grip strength, and longevity, and quad strength, and brain health. And for me, the biggest flex in the last several years, I've been going to the gym regularly, lifting weights. I feel so good. So when I travel, I can lift my suitcase.
Yes.
And I can lift it and put it up on the bin. And I'm like, yeah, I'm so proud of myself. And I know it sounds funny, but it's like, I'm so proud of myself.
Yeah, I think it's really important, because strength training is something that I've been doing for years. I think it's not a matter of resources, it's just awareness. You could use your own body to work on your core strength, just ultimately being conscientious about the importance of feeling strong. And again, it goes back to vibrancy and vitality. And if you feel vibrant and vital, you're going to have a spark. You're going to have energy. You're going to light up a room. You're going to love being with people. You're going to love being in conversation, and people are going to feel that aura and that energy from you.
Community is so important. Again, back to like feeling seen, feeling validated, and having, as women, we love to confide in each other and be social with each other, right? So having that community, it fills us up. I've got an amazing community on TikTok. You know, for me, going there and hearing from the women and hearing the comments and hearing what they're going through, it just makes me not feel so alone.
Well, that's how we ended up with this conversation about menopause. Is so many women in their reviews shared experiences like yours that said, oh my God, I have only been wearing leggings for the last 5 years. I cried in the dressing room. This is the first pair of jeans that I was able to wear. And they feel alive again. When we reflect on our youth, is our jean wearing selves when we were younger. And more than likely, we were in our best shape, and then we feel like those days are behind us. So I think for democracy, what we want to do is reconnect women through our democracy absolution genes with their most vital selves that they feel has been kind of put out to pasture. So we want to bring them back into the game.
Well, I think one thing that's interesting, when we were probably in our bodies the most, is when we're 15, 16, right? We just got our boobs, we're falling in love, right? We're kissing for the first time, we're like in our bodies. And then we grow up, we have babies, bodies just kind of become this
Vessels.
thing. I had to use the mantra, I am not my body, so that I could show up. So we had to disassociate from our bodies. And now we're dropping back into our bodies. And that's why it associates with being 15, 16, because that was the last time we were literally in our body.
Yeah.
I just get so excited for women to feel back in their bodies.
Yeah. And I think once you get through it, you feel alive again. You
Yes.
really do. Maybe more than before.
I think there's something to be said about the wisdom that we acquire through maturity and sacrifice to get to this stage of life where we're at, which coincides with menopause. We really want to hear from you. We want to know, are we making a difference in your lives? I want to hear from everybody. I want people to reach out and know that we're all here listening. Anything that we can contribute by amplifying your voice, or by just being an environment where you can share, and anything that I can do through clothing. That's my love language, to make you feel, beautiful and loved. That's what our mission is here.
Well, now that I know you, I will be putting in all of my requests on behalf of the millions of women. So,
Like I used to love wearing jeans, and then I stopped wearing jeans. And now, since I've been, and maybe it's coincided with my 50s, I love wearing jeans again. And it's definitely a shift. And perhaps it is that the fact that now I feel more empowered, and I never really thought of it like that. So
anything you liked when you were in your teens, 15, 16, 17, like listen to the Debbie Gibson, listen to the Paula Abdul, go way back and start doing the things that brought you to life when you were 16, 17, 18. Women need to get back into their jeans. That's so good.
I think you can't minimize the importance of clothing and feeling good. I mean, even in this whole journey that we're on, if we can at least show up and not feel like I look like a hot mess, or I'm just, nothing fits, or I'm just uncomfortable. I have friends that say they sit and cry in their closet before they're about to meet me out because they couldn't find anything to wear. So it's so important. And to your point also, we just talked about feeling good and how important that is, but also when you feel good, when you're comfortable, when you feel stylish, that's amazing, boost your confidence, but then it also opens up room to focus on other things, because we've been so focused on what's wrong with us, right? And so now we feel good. And I know that you all have personal experience with this. You said that you've just recently made some big achievements.
Yeah, I mean, you feel invisible for so long. And when you like pop awake, you're like, it's a whole new world. I mean, I've been able to finish a book. I've been able to start this new company. And in 2 weeks, I'm going to go travel around Europe with my 20-year-old and go night clubbing.
Ooh.
I mean, that's not something I would have ever thought.
It's great.
for me, I started Morphus when I was 50. So I was in menopause, and I started a brand new company. I got a book deal with Simon Schuster that will come out next year on menopause and perimenopause, which is very exciting. Started a TikTok page at 50, started like a new form of social media for me. So much has happened over the last 5 years. It's been incredible for me. And I just find menopause to be so empowering. I love my 50s. I love this decade. I feel like I've been able to put down boundaries. I've been able to, just find who I am, be who I am, and just kind of continue to grow.
For me, I would say I feel so supported by our leadership in our company to be able to step out in more of these founder roles and to do things that are not necessarily revenue generators, but that are soul fillers. Being out there in community, meeting people, having conversations, hugging women, touching lives, getting butts in jeans, is a really exhilarating experience for me.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for doing what you do.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for doing
Yes.
what you do.
Once we got talking, we all had a lot in common. And I think that's the point, is we can be open about it. We can tackle anything. And so, thank you all for your expertise. And thank you, everyone, for watching this episode of Common Threads. We want everyone to comment, join in the conversation. We're going to pop in and try and answer some comments when we get a moment too, and hit that subscribe button. Thanks for joining us for Hot and Unbothered, chat about menopause.
Thank you so much for listening. Here at Democracy Clothing, we are stitched together through fit, fashion, and feelings. We hope you enjoyed the conversation that we had regarding menopause and perimenopause. And if you relate to any of the things that we shared, especially the part about finding it difficult to navigate in that ever-changing body of yours, then write below in the comments. Here at Democracy Clothing, we want you to know that we see you, we care about you, and we definitely want to hear from you. See you next time.